The former empress has been reborn as a little girl. I was once the supreme, unparalleled ruler of the underwater kingdom of Atlantis. For a man, I gave up 3,000 difficult spoils. But how could I have imagined? My lover, the scholar of Jean Sherbet. Because of him, I was tragically framed. Helplessly, I was reborn as a 3-year-old toddler. Before my rebirth, I resided in this mysterious palace within the deep sea, and I was the faith of all underwater beings. I had 2 capable generals, the sage Cayetan and the war god, and these 2 were not only my subordinates, but also my beloved friends and relatives. On the surface, each of them was incredibly devoted to me. But on this day, I planned to secretly surprise my lover, but unexpectedly discovered a heartbreaking scene outside the door. My tears flowed uncontrollably from my eyes. Even though I witnessed everything with my own eyes, I still couldn't accept reality. I didn't interrupt them, but left indignantly. While I was grieving, End appeared before me. Without any explanation, he and Cayetan bound me with ropes. They imprisoned me for 99 and 108 days, then came to me again, attempting to break down the last line of defense in my heart. Cayetan kept saying it was for love, that he had no choice. Finally, they succeeded in shattering my heart. My heart was broken. This was when I was at my weakest. Therefore, in an instant, they sealed me within the chaotic void. I never imagined he could be so vicious, not to kill me, but to make me suffer the torment of purgatory forever. I was tortured inside for 1,000 years. Finally, a crack appeared in the seal. My whole body gradually regained sensation. I seemed to feel raindrops falling on me, and in this humid air, there seemed to be a mixture of the scent of blood. Finally, I opened my eyes. I was being held in someone's arms, but the first thing I saw was a sword shooting towards me. The maid holding me twisted her body, and the sword plunged directly into her. The immense force caused her to collapse to the ground. I struggled out of the maid's arms. Only then did I realize I seemed to be sucking on my hand. But how did I become a 3-year-old child? I couldn't help but wonder if I was dreaming. I pinched myself. Perhaps due to a child's instinct, it hurt so much that I burst into tears. Seeing this, the maid held me even tighter, and the assassin threatened, demanding I be handed over. To my surprise, the maid didn't hand me over. Instead, she held me even tighter. This deeply moved me, having been betrayed and tormented for 1,000 years. Seeing this, the assassin swung his sword at us. To my surprise, it was the assassin who was injured. But just then, another group of Iran appeared. This was clearly not something the injured maid could handle. If it were the former me, they wouldn't have been any match for me. But not only had I been tragically sealed, I was now just a child. I gripped the maid's clothes tightly, but my eyes revealed unwillingness and determination. I must take revenge. Just then, an assassin charged towards us. Like the former ado, I was thrown heavily to the ground. I hurriedly tried to summon the power of the sea that I once possessed. Seeing the assassin about to attack the maid, I finally felt a trace of the sea's power. Several other assassins charged towards me. At this critical moment, the seawater surged and filled their mouths and noses. Looking at the corpses all over the ground, I knew I had succeeded. The maid looked at me in disbelief, and she hugged me and cried. It was only because she didn't abandon me. And I seemed to smell a familiar scent of the sea. Just as I was lost in thought, a towering wave appeared before us. A towering wave rushed towards us. This wasn't an ordinary wave, but a wave from the royal chamber. Tinged with a longing for me, unseen for 1,000 years, it stopped a meter away. Even so, some spray splashed my face. I couldn't help but worry whether Cayetan and Ind would notice the disturbance in the water. After all, I'm no match for either of them right now. The maid looked at my adorable self, praying that this was a manifestation of my powers. That way, my chances of survival will be greater. At this moment, my memories seemed to begin merging. The maid before me is named Ade. Just before my parents were murdered, she was the one who rescued me. And now, we must reach the Emperor to survive, because I am the key person in the divine realm. Since I can merge with my previous memories, I must have been reborn. However, perhaps due to the influence of a seal, I still retain memories of my past life. Although my current body is adorable, the thought of revenge in this form presents many inconveniences. I couldn't help but feel frustrated. Whether it was because I was still a child or because I had overexerted myself, I suddenly fell asleep. When I woke up again, I seemed to have arrived at the imperial palace. Seeing that I was awake, the maid expressed her relief at our survival, while proclaiming her loyalty and insisting she wasn't a spy. However, as a former empress, being carried around by her irritated me, but she only became more excited. Just then, the voice of the emperor announcing his arrival came from beyond the stone gate. I couldn't help but worry. I sensed the familiar aura of a sea dragon, but this wasn't Atlantis. A blond man appeared before me. Thankfully, it wasn't Cayetan. However, he bore a striking resemblance to Cayetan and was unusually affectionate towards me. After being reborn, I've encountered my enemy's son. Not only is he an ordinary man, but he's also acting cute and cuddly with me. Here I am in the imperial palace, and when the emperor entered, the maid hastily bowed. But the emperor declared that I was the final sacrifice. I couldn't help but wonder, was I to be sacrificed again? He then inquired about my parents. Listening to the maid say their fate was unknown, his face darkened and a surge of anger shot skyward. And I, perhaps because I was still a child, started crying unconsciously. The man casually ordered a suitable date to be chosen for mourning my parents. Then he looked at me, declaring that I was the key to curing the dragon's frenzy. I felt like he was constantly provoking me. I'm not a doctor. Why do I need to cure it? And according to my memories, adding some sea urchins would solve the problem. Why use a living person? Looking at this man who resembled Cayetan so much, I couldn't help but feel frustrated. Seeing me staring at him, he provocatively asked if I wanted to know who he was. He claimed to be a good friend of my mother and the king of this Cayetan nation, named Agri Cayetan. I couldn't believe his audacity, using his own name for the name of the country. So, this man before me must be Cayetan's descendant. It seems End was abandoned in the end. He spoke so much of love, but ultimately, he still found another woman to marry and have children with. I couldn't help but feel angry. If he had said he wanted the throne, I would have given it to him. As I lamented, Cayetan's descendant suddenly lifted me up. My expression changed drastically. I am a former empress. Am I someone anyone can just pick up? And he gripped me tightly. My frail body couldn't bear it. The pain made me cry out. He tried to explain himself, saying I must be hungry. Then he asked if I needed a diaper change. Seeing me waving my hands, he actually thought I liked him. Why are there such presumptuous men? A nearby attendant tried to defend me, saying I was just a child. But Agri Cayetan just glared at him. The terrified attendant immediately knelt and begged for forgiveness. I couldn't help but think he was a foolish king, and he kept asking if I wasn't afraid of him. Inwardly, I was screaming, "Who do you think you are?" He seemed to think I was cute and reached out to touch me. Then he asked, "Can I do this?" While I was still confused, he did something I never want to remember for the rest of my life. Is this really something a king would do? Reborn after being betrayed by a friend, I became the child of his descendant. And because of my own curse, I'm going to be offered as a sacrifice. Just before Agri Cayetan, the descendant of my enemy, came to find me, he was recalling a past I didn't know. It turns out my mother was his sister. And as a member of the royal family, they've been cursed for 1,000 years. It's a curse from the first emperor's crown princess, who died full of resentment. After every crown prince comes of age, they suffer both physical and spiritual torment. Therefore, the royal family has to offer a sacrifice. According to the prophecy, only when the first crown princess reappears and grants forgiveness will the curse be lifted. And if not, the crown princess will become the sacrifice. So even though my mother was his sister, he was powerless. He could only suffer in helpless pain. And now I'm imprisoned in Jiwu City. If I'm not the crown princess, I'm destined to be a sacrifice. At this moment, I'm being manhandled by Agri Cayetan. He completely disregarded my feelings simply because he found me cute. I was soft to hold, so he played with me carelessly. He even tried to make me laugh with some strange poses he supposedly learned from a book. Just because I didn't laugh, he threatened to kill the author. I couldn't help but sigh. He's a tyrant. He only knows how to abuse his power, completely disregarding the feelings of others. And he did all of this just to get a laugh out of me. After some thought, he told me, if I laughed, he would renovate my house and give the maid some mediocre servants and attendants. Of course, I didn't need any of that, but the maid seemed to be looking forward to it. Seeing her hopeful eyes, I decided to help her. But looking at Agri Cayetan's expression, I seemed to see Cayetan's devout face before me, as he had been in the past. Despite this, I composed myself, and a sweet smile appeared. This smile seemed to strike Agri Cayetan's heart. Seeing him so excited, the servants nearby immediately started flattering him. They even went so far as to say I was Agri Cayetan's daughter. Agri Cayetan seemed to enjoy the servant's flattery. Then he took out a pink turtle and gave it to me, symbolizing longevity. Listening to the servant's outrageous words, I really wanted to slap them. Looking at the pink turtle, I found it even more ridiculous. He imprisons me in this Jiwoo city, and he has the nerve to wish me a long life. Agri Cayetan rubbed my head. His expression seemed to change slightly. Then he left abruptly. As soon as the door closed, Agri Cayetan slammed against the wall. A piercing pain seemed to spread throughout his body, as if a demon was charao around him, sucking his soul. Sweat started to pour from his face at a visible rate. The servants beside him immediately rushed to support him, preparing to help him back to the palace. His face had changed color. He said, "You're all traitors," accusing them of revealing his whereabouts. It was unclear who he was talking to. In an instant, several lives were lost. His complexion gradually improved. Without showing any emotion, he calmly wiped the blood from his face. Inside the room, I was completely oblivious to all of this. Once an empress, reborn after being betrayed by a friend, I had become the child of his descendant, and I had just been spanked. After Emperor Agri Cayetan left, the maid immediately began praising my intelligence. She said the bloodline of the Luxiong family truly lived up to its reputation. I knew she was so happy because she had received the emperor's commendation, but I felt that if I had cried, that dim-witted emperor would have immediately dragged her out and beheaded her. However, through her words, I also heard some news about my two older brothers. Despite being brothers, I hadn't met them yet. With this curiosity, I drifted off to sleep. After falling asleep, I seemed to feel someone touching my face, and someone kept chattering at me incessantly. One of them said, "Don't break her." The other replied, "I've read a lot of books about children." Accompanied by the noise, I groggily opened my eyes. Standing before me were two cheerful, sunny boys. I knew they were probably my older brothers who had returned from war, Natani and Sibei. One of them bore a striking resemblance to me. They saw me staring at them, and Natani couldn't help but wonder if I could sense his powerful aura. After Sibei confirmed it, he discovered an innate, powerful force within me. Hearing him say this, I hurriedly waved my little hands, signaling if they could sense the power of Thalassa within me. Unexpectedly, the two of them, like clueless simpletons, thought I was playing with them. Natani, boasting about having read parenting books, started showing off and explained to Sibei that I was calling them older brother. He then began teaching me to say Appa. Naturally, I looked at him with disgust. He, having just shown off, was understandably embarrassed. However, I also realized we were of mixed coral elf blood. The coral elves are the strongest warrior race in the sea, and because the coral elves possess radiant beauty, that they attract many humans who try to capture and enslave them. My mother's assassination might be related to this. Fearing that the coral elves would continue to multiply and become the most powerful race on Earth, my two brothers were naturally also very worried about the safety of the three of us siblings. From their conversation, I also learned about an organization called Shintoa, which seemed to pose a threat to me. Listening to them, I learned about the divine realm for the first time, and I didn't know what the Dragon Crown Princess was. I hurriedly tried to react, signaling to them. The two were skeptical that I could understand them, but it was only a momentary doubt. They continued talking, mentioning that finding the daughter of the sea and obtaining her forgiveness, that was the key to lifting the curse. At this point, I gradually understood. They were talking about me, a 4-year-old child who didn't want toys, but gave her first kiss for a book. Before this, through their conversation, I learned that I was the Dragon Crown Princess. While I was pondering, my goofy younger brother suddenly grabbed me. He grinned happily, then started swinging me around. I passed out. I only vaguely heard the later conversation about signing a contract with the Crown Prince. I didn't hear anything else clearly. My eldest brother, Sibei, held me lovingly and then placed me in the cradle. He tucked me in. The two of them looked at me and suddenly said, "Even if we are shattered to pieces, we will protect you." Looking at them, I couldn't help but sigh. They were still just children. They were also afraid of death, yet they were willing to sacrifice their lives for me. The next day, my naive brother brought a toy, trying to attract my attention. My eldest brother quietly accompanied us. My second brother gave me the nickname Bo and tried to sneak a kiss on me when I wasn't looking. I rewarded him with a kick to the face. He was even happily stroking it. Suddenly, I wanted to see the ocean, which I hadn't seen in a long time. I hurriedly called out, pointing towards the window and acting coquettishly. He immediately understood what I meant. Finally, I saw the ocean I hadn't seen in 1,000 years. Looking at the ocean, I fell into deep thought again. I recalled the happy times we had spent together, but everything had become a thing of the past. I couldn't help but get angrier the more I thought about it. Suddenly, I discovered Natani's book, titled The Origin of the Crown Princess Roan. I wanted to understand it quickly. When I asked Natani for it, he was stunned at first. Then he handed it over. I reached out my hand, but then he unexpectedly took it back. I was fuming. Seeing me like this, he actually said he would only give it to me if I kissed him. I honestly didn't expect Natani, who was always so serious, to make such a request. He's really quite cunning. That naive Sibe also got excited. But in order to understand this history better, I had no choice but to compromise. In the end, I slowly leaned in, appeased Natani, and got the book. And just as I was reading alone, a man in black appeared on the chandelier. A 4-year-old child, instead of wanting her toys, gave her first kiss for a book. Finally, she got the book. While I was reading, there was actually someone hiding on the chandelier above me. As the former queen of Atlantis, I naturally noticed him immediately. I deliberately put on my most relaxed appearance to lure him out. What I didn't expect was that what he saw in me wasn't prey, but a cute little nose and soft, pink curls, and soft, chubby little feet. Seeing that he had no intention to kill, I knew that the Emperor had sent him to protect me, but it was also possible he was here to watch me. The book said that the first emperor of this empire, Caetan, was a believer in Atlantis. And after the underwater civilization disappeared due to drought, only 2 people escaped. Caetan used the sea dragon ruins to build a new nation, and he also received a curse. It was the first head of the Luxiong family, the Crown Princess Roan, who ended his suffering. And the next Crown Princess Roan had to sign a contract with the Crown Prince. I couldn't help but wonder what kind of contract it was. And why did Atlantis disappear? Because the waters of Atlantis experience a drought cycle every 10 years. At the same time, the people of Atlantis can quickly adapt to various environments. Coupled with Caetan's illness, all these claims seem artificial and not trustworthy. The book records that the Crown Princess Roan will awaken after the age of 15. Even the incantation is clearly recorded. I felt like I was caught in a whirlpool of conspiracy, but it was all too complicated. I felt powerless and fell asleep after a while. In my dream, Adele came to me, tidied me up, and then left. But after she left, I seemed to hear a cry for help. When I woke up again, the voice seemed to still be calling me. I answered, but he only spoke of his pain. I couldn't help but feel a little angry. How could I help him like this? Just as I looked down, I suddenly found a boy in front of me. He not only looked strained, but also seemed somewhat translucent. He looked up at me with tears streaming down his face. Suddenly, he collapsed. Just as I reached out to grab him, a strange magic flashed. He vanished into thin air. I was born the chosen one. Just a sneeze can summon heavenly thunder and intimidate all beings. Mere presence inspires awe and compels obedience. Even the maids by my side are extraordinary. Yesterday, I encountered a boy who could vanish instantly. This morning, I was still thinking about him. My maid came in and told me we were going to memorial service for my deceased parents. She also warned me that many people would be there and it could be dangerous. She advised me to wear armor underneath my clothes, explaining that she was also wearing some. I couldn't help but be suspicious of her status. How could an ordinary maid receive such treatment? However, for safety's sake, I obediently put on the armor. She, dressed in a school uniform, accompanied me to the funeral. The customs of Caetan are similar to those of my homeland, Atlantis. It was a water burial. As an elder officiated, my parents' remains drifted away. Even my usually carefree younger brother, Natani, wept with grief. My older brother, Sibe, though clearly distressed, showed no outward emotion. In my past life, I was a daughter of the sea without parents. After being reborn and awakening my past life memories, my parents have already left me. I silently vowed to avenge them. Thinking this, I couldn't help but shed tears. I need to absorb the power of the ocean quickly. Suddenly, it felt like something was drawn into my nose. I sneezed. Unexpectedly, I had absorbed too much power, and it summoned a bolt of lightning. Everyone present was startled. I awkwardly touched my nose. Fortunately, everyone assumed that even the heavens were mourning the passing of my parents. They began to gossip about us, even saying that if I weren't the crown princess, death would await us. I hadn't realized the extent of their malice towards us. I remembered Caetan telling me that a single smile of mine could charm anyone. Looking at my weeping brother, Natani, and the gossiping crowd, a brilliant smile bloomed on my face. In an instant, I won the favor of everyone present. Even two elegantly dressed, noble women expressed their fondness for me. They then started gossiping near me. They spoke of how the emperor, due to his volatile temper, had never married. But then how did the crown prince come to be? Just as they reached the crucial point, they turned to leave. I quickly used my powers to overhear them. Apparently, the crown prince is very frail and may not even be able to inherit the throne. I couldn't help but wonder if the boy from yesterday was the crown prince. Then I overheard something about a prophecy in which I am apparently destined to marry the crown prince. But then I heard that he had apparently even killed his own servants. He seemed completely different from the boy I met yesterday. Their ages didn't seem to match either. So I decided to try and contact him just as he had appeared before me out of thin air yesterday. I seemed to establish some kind of connection. The moment I opened my eyes, I saw him curled up beside me. I asked him directly, "Are you my future husband?" Others came to mourn my parents, but I just slapped him. Just now. I wanted to see the boy who could appear out of nowhere. I simply thought about it, and he appeared again, just like that. I asked him directly, "Are you my future husband?" Meanwhile, the emperor, Agricaetan, was getting dressed. An attendant came to report on my parents' funeral. The crown prince of the neighboring kingdom had also attended the funeral. Emperor Agricaetan suspected they were responsible for my parents' deaths. According to the prophecy, the arrival of the crown princess would make the Caetan Empire even stronger. Therefore, he ordered the execution of the neighboring kingdom's crown prince if any evidence was found. Meanwhile, I saw the injured boy again. He was still crying. He didn't answer my question. Just as I was about to press him further, he vanished, unwilling to answer. I knew that if he disappeared on his own, I wouldn't be able to find him, but I still had so many unanswered questions. Just then, Agricaetan entered. Carrying a closed spear, he announced the arrival of a distinguished guest. My curiosity was piqued. I immediately asked my nanny to hold me, so I wouldn't be blocked from view. A man, seemingly only half Agricaetan's size, appeared. He respectfully expressed his deference to Agricaetan. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Agricaetan softly muttered, "He's finally here." Then, sarcastically, he added, "I wonder if he's here to mourn or to confirm the deaths." I couldn't help but feel uneasy. But the neighboring kingdom's prince remained impassive, even seeming to smile as he said, "I, too, am a child. Such pain is truly unimaginable." He then presented a prepared gift. I started to analyze his words, then Agricaetan's words and attitude. Looking at his sickening smile, I thought, he's probably the one who murdered my parents. I unconsciously clenched my fists, thinking of my parents, my only parents in 2 lifetimes, gone just like that. Burning with rage, I was noticed by the neighboring prince. He, too, began to suspect that I was the Dragon Crown Princess. As he approached, I instantly recognized a familiar look in his eyes, a look that also belonged to someone I loathed. I pretended to happily rush towards him. He, of course, wouldn't pass up an opportunity to interact with the Dragon Crown Princess and immediately began to tease me. As he drew near, I scowled and raised my hand. Without hesitation, I struck him. Everyone present gasped. That blow, infused with the power of the sea god, sent him sprawling to the ground. But how could I salvage this situation? I, the Dragon Crown Princess, was seen shaking my butt, doing that Crayon Shinchan but dance. Just now, the neighboring prince came to my parents' funeral, and I just gave him a good walloping. He stood up, looking at me, about to explode in anger. I then rewarded him with another slap. After hitting him, I felt completely refreshed. He was about to lose his temper, but thankfully the maid stopped him in time. She said I was just a child and told him to watch his behavior. Sensing the tense atmosphere, my 2 brothers immediately rushed over and stood in front of me, accusing the prince of slandering me. The prince, of course, refused to admit it. Fortunately, the murmurs of the crowd drowned him out. Who would believe a baby could be so cunning? He had no choice but to endure it. I couldn't help but think, go back and train for another 2 years, punk. The farce ended just like that. Emperor Agricaetan was overjoyed, absolutely delighted. The attendants were also thrilled with my performance. And so, the 3 of them reminisced about my adorable expressions. This was the first time Agricaetan had been so happy since the former king's death. In Agricaetan's eyes, nothing was more important than my marriage to the crown prince. He then continued to inquire about me, but no one expected him to mention me secretly shaking my butt and dancing. Emperor Agricaetan hastily ordered it to be secretly recorded. Meanwhile, I dreamt of us in the past. The three of us got along so harmoniously. But then I suddenly dreamt of being imprisoned in purgatory by them. I reached out helplessly, trying to get them to pull me out of the cage, but I was met with only endless silence. I woke up struggling, with tears in my eyes. Even now, I still suspect there's a hidden reason for their betrayal. Just then, several maids appeared. I knew at a glance that they were sent by Emperor Agricaetan. One of them even brought me a self-propelled baby carriage. After getting in, I immediately escaped from them and found the nearest spot to the ocean to recover my strength. But just then, that familiar voice rang out again. The withdrawn boy appeared before me once more. Looking at him, I reached out my hand, and he responded in kind. Perhaps this was the beginning of the 1,000-year redemption the dragon race had been waiting for. We gazed at each other with deep affection, seemingly forgetting everything. When I woke up again, I was in a bed. I couldn't help but wonder if it had all been a dream. But I immediately dismissed that thought, because a boy with dragon horns was lying beside me. But if you were betrayed by a lover, would you still choose to believe in love? I was betrayed by my boyfriend before I transmigrated, and after transmigrating, I was teased by a child. Before this, I woke up to find a boy beside me. He seemed very weak. I hurriedly reached out to check if he was still alive. The moment I touched him, I knew that what was on his head was a sea dragon's horn. But the crown prince is only 5 years old. He's not that young. Could he be the emperor's illegitimate child? Looking at the unfamiliar surroundings, I couldn't help but feel curious. He was so ill. Why wasn't anyone watching over him? Suddenly, a tingling sensation swept through my body. For some reason, I just felt that his delicate features made my heart race. He was even more handsome than my 2 older brothers, so I couldn't help but feel some heartache. I hurriedly started to take care of him. He also woke up. Seeing me beside him, he had a wary expression, but in my eyes, he was just a well-behaved little sea dragon tyrant. Watching him struggle to sit up, I hurriedly thought of solutions from the books I'd read, but he wasn't being cooperative. A large hand pulled me into his embrace. I felt my heart race, and my whole body seemed to flush with heat. I sighed and then lay on him, resonating with him to ease his pain. His complexion gradually improved. My mood also lifted. Seeing him close his eyes, a wave of exhaustion washed over me. Thinking about how he hadn't made a sound despite being in so much pain, I couldn't help but wonder if what I had seen before was his inner self. Then I fell asleep on top of him. I slept very soundly. When I woke up groggily, I heard a captivating voice. I saw him fully dressed, watching over me. I was startled, because he possessed the same powerful strength I had at his age in my previous life. But I am a daughter of the sea. The only difference is that he is loathed by the sea. I shared some of my power with him, so he would be closer to the sea. He seemed more comfortable. He asked me if I was the Dragon Crown Princess, saying our resonance would grow stronger. Just as he thanked me for my support, my stomach suddenly growled. He asked if I wanted some milk. I was speechless, unable to communicate. I could only scream internally, "I want meat." He suddenly smiled. I found it very strange. He smiled and told me that it seemed he could hear my thoughts if they were strong enough, but only short phrases. Hearing a noise in the room, an attendant appeared. The attendant was shocked the moment he looked up. He hadn't expected me to be there, but the boy, with an indifferent expression, ordered him to prepare food for me. The moment the attendant left, he turned to me with a kind expression and asked for my name. Just as I was thinking about how to communicate with him, he suddenly told me he never wanted to be apart from me, forever. The Crown Prince wasn't the Emperor's biological son, and he wanted to be with me forever. But I didn't even know his name yet. Just then, he suddenly said my name, and he told me his name was Sien. I couldn't help but marvel that he could know my thoughts even without eye contact. However, he didn't seem like a 5-year-old boy. He then explained that the royal family matured faster. Looking into his purple eyes, I suddenly felt that he didn't resemble the Emperor at all. To my surprise, he heard even that thought through our connection. But he immediately explained that he wasn't the Emperor's son. Seeing this, I didn't dare to speculate further, afraid he'd hear my thoughts again. However, I couldn't help but start fantasizing about marrying him. I thought about that beautiful scene. I unconsciously stroked his cheek. Just then, 2 people barged in. It was my second older brother and Adele. All 4 of us froze. My second brother even dramatically cried out, "Where did my adorable little sister go?" At that moment, a maid came in with food. The Crown Prince, Sien, immediately changed his expression and demanded to know why the maid let others in. The maid quickly explained and begged for forgiveness. But I was hungry, so I started rolling around. My silly second brother actually thought I was sick. Fortunately, Cien understood what I meant. He let the maid go and then started feeding me himself. I just felt so happy. Just as we were enjoying this blissful moment, my silly second brother ruined the mood again. They said they want to take me back, but if I went back, I'd be like a mute. How could I be willing to go back? The crown prince immediately refused them, and as I looked at Cien, I knew that although he appeared strong, he was actually struggling even to stand. But he was still so gentle with me, without a trace of negativity. For the next few days, he carried me around the palace. Some of the servants started gossiping about us. I even overheard them, but Cien still didn't react. But as soon as they started talking about me, Cien became furious. He immediately had them dragged out and executed. Then we left in a carriage. During our idle chatter, Cien suddenly said that although we were about the same age, there were still unknown sides to us. I was shocked. Was he talking about me or himself? Had my secret been discovered? I have a clueless boyfriend. I talked to him about sophisticated things, and he talks to me about cornbread. Before this, he had also argued with my brother. Then he brought me to the imperial palace. Afterward, my two brothers suddenly barged in rudely. Everyone was startled. After all, this was an imperial banquet. Someone actually dared to intrude and question the crown prince in public. Even I started to worry about my two brothers. But they were fearless, because they were willing to risk their lives for me. I quickly called out, signaling that I was fine. Seeing this, my two brothers immediately calmed down and quickly apologized to Emperor Agri-Kaeden. They expressed their dissatisfaction with the crown prince taking me away. They also said they wanted to be the first to know about everything concerning me. Although the two were respectful, their warning to the crown prince was palpable. The crown prince naturally put on a haughty air, but I told him through our connection that I thought my brothers were right. He immediately became embarrassed. Fortunately, Agri-Kaeden smoothed things over. That avoided further awkwardness. My brothers were still very concerned about me. He then started asking others if I, as the Dragon Crown Princess, would be in any danger. Hearing these words, Crown Prince Cien's expression darkened. I was also anxious. However, I still hoped everything would be all right. Then Cien and I would go traveling. A minister explained that only by going to the royal archives could we learn what happened in the past. Naturally, I wouldn't miss this opportunity. But no matter how I tried to express myself, no one understood what I meant. Not even Cien could understand. I could only give up struggling. Then, Cien excitedly started whispering sweet nothings to me. I almost felt the urge to hit him. Then, the emperor affectionately patted my head and told me I could stay in the crown princess's palace. As soon as I entered, I saw the bedroom walls were decorated with crystal. I was very satisfied. Then, there were hundreds of beautiful clothes in the dressing room. The sound of frogs croaking filled the bedroom. Even the servants were shocked. At that moment, my two brothers came in. My second elder brother rushed towards me excitedly and then handed me a gift box. Inside was my mother's relic. I recognized it at a glance as the lucky stone. Suddenly, I shuddered. I said, "This is what we lost when we escaped by the river that day. But how could it be here? And how did it end up in my brother's hands? Could there be more to the story of who tried to kill me? The bracelet I lost when I was being chased. That has been returned to me by my brother. Is it a coincidence, or was it deliberate? Or did the person who tried to assassinate me also come to the capital? The maid who was bestowed upon me along with the imperial decree also explained the situation at that time. She explained that the bracelet slipped off due to the assassin's continuous attacks. I was lost in thought. At the time, I was curious how a maid could withstand the assassin's attacks. Now, it seems it was thanks to this bracelet. Fortunately, I regained consciousness in time. Otherwise, without the bracelet, Adele definitely wouldn't have been able to take me away. My second elder brother quickly said he would investigate the matter. Then he started playing with me. At this moment, the bracelet suddenly shimmered. I guess it must have given my mother a premonition back then. That's how Adele was able to successfully take me away. Just then, a scream echoed through the palace. It was just a maid who had fallen and broken a plate. I didn't expect the bracelet could even predict such a small thing. Since nothing major happened, I was relieved. Then my eldest brother said that my party for becoming the Dragon Crown Princess would be held in 2 weeks. Since I still can't speak, my eldest brother will act as the host. After he finished speaking, he was about to take my second elder brother away. My second elder brother was naturally reluctant to leave and started acting silly with me again. Then he thanked me because I had become the Dragon Crown Princess. This prevented us from becoming sacrifices. After kissing me, he got his wish and left with my eldest brother. With my second elder brother gone, the Crown Princess's palace returned to its usual peace. 2 weeks later, amidst the maids' exclamations, that I finished getting dressed for the day, since I could only bring one maid to the banquet. The other three expressed their regret at not being able to attend the party. Then Adele took me to say goodbye to the three of them. Accompanied by leisurely music, we walked down the stairs. Then I saw Cien. He seemed to have been waiting for a long time. I just thought he looked absolutely stunning. I quickly gestured that I wanted to be held by him. Cien was happy to oblige. Having not seen each other for 2 weeks, we were naturally overjoyed. He told me about what he'd been up to. That as he led me to the party. Many people were already there when we arrived. I firmly believed that with Cien by my side, any drama at the party could be quelled. I was just subjected to verbal attacks because of my cute appearance. Just now, as Cien was carrying me through the party, some girls complimented me, but then someone started saying all sorts of bad things about me. Angrily, I reached out my hand to protest, but Cien and Adele didn't understand what I meant at all. To avoid embarrassment, Adele quickly offered to take me. He said he was taking me out for some fresh air, but he actually understood me very well. He put me in my automatic stroller. This way, I would have a chance to get into the royal treasury. Cien called out for me to be careful not to fall. Who would trip over a baby carriage? At this point, I arrived beside those gossiping men, but they didn't just talk about me. They even dared to speak ill of my deceased mother. So I controlled the wine in his glass and splashed it on him. They were still talking about the strange incident just now. I just smirked. Although I was still upset about them talking about my mother, I quickly fled the scene. But I had just left the banquet, searching for the door behind which my royal uncle was. Then I ran into a hot-tempered man. Judging by his makeup, he seemed to be a mage. He also realized that I was the Dragon Crown Princess. While he was stunned, I ran inside. Inside were many documents. These were the ancient spells of Atlantis. The hot-tempered man was afraid I would mess them up, but he didn't dare to come forward and stop me. I just glanced at them casually, and found the errors within. I gestured for him to come over and used my hands to explain. He actually understood what I was saying. He was first surprised that I could understand. Then he knelt on the ground. Suddenly, he grabbed my hands, constantly begging me to take him as my disciple. His series of actions startled me, but I understood that this was the obsession of a spellcaster. After some thought, I decided to let everyone know about my talent. This way, my chances of entering the royal library would be greater. When he saw me smile, he thought I had agreed. Under his expectant gaze, I started to cry. In the moment of his shock, the door was kicked open. I even suspected the three of them had been outside the door the whole time. The hot-tempered man then received their loving attention, and the three of them were rarely on the same side. I had originally intended to attract everyone to showcase my talent, but I didn't expect this silly boy to get roughed up. After my prompting, the hot-tempered man brought a glass of water. I just waved my hand, and the water flew out of the glass. Under everyone's gaze, I displayed my talent, and Cien immediately ordered someone to call Mata the Elder. I simply splashed the water in the air and gained the attention of the royal family. Afterwards, I sat with the emperor and the others. I fantasized about using my ability to decipher ancient civilizations to gain access to the royal library. The two people in front of me were Mata the Elder and the Grand Sage. That hot-tempered fool was still marveling at my talent, but those two naturally wouldn't believe it. However, for the sake of the emperor's face, they opened a scroll of ancient records. With just a glance, I recognized it as a giant's cooking method. Then I waved my little hand, and the water formed a string of words in the air. They were all startled, and they asked me how I knew these things. After a moment of thought, I used the water again to tell them that I had known these things since birth. Then, I expressed my desire to enter the royal library, but Emperor Agri-Kaeden refused me, simply because he was worried that such a genius like me would be assassinated if my abilities were revealed. I couldn't help but feel a little angry. But the two elderly workaholics were very interested in me. They were even willing to work their entire lives just to wait for me to grow up. Afterwards, they began to negotiate with Emperor Agri-Kaeden. They didn't seem to be completely obedient to the royal family. Just after they left, Cien was called out by the emperor. It turned out Cien had been eavesdropping on their conversation. Agri-Kaeden also had Cien call him uncle. He said that the throne would eventually be Cien's. It seemed that he was doing this to let Cien deal with his rage issues first. Through their conversation, I also learned that they wanted to use the sage and Mata the Elder to start a war. in order to achieve victory. I couldn't help but think, although they are Cayetan's descendants, but their pain also hurt my heart. However, as a child, I couldn't solve these problems. A year passed like this. I turned 2. Although the little sister I gained after being reborn was cute, she was also a little messy, and Adele pointed it out directly. Then he immediately went to get new clothes. Everything he did was just because I asked about the previous emperor's cause of death to lighten the mood. Just as I was wondering if I had made a mistake, he came over and told me not to talk about the previous emperor anymore because it was a painful memory for them. I really didn't expect it to be so important to Adele too. He told me about the previous emperor and my mother, whom he called sister. As he spoke, he began to shed tears. Seeing this, I couldn't ask any more questions. I could only reach out and comfort him. He suddenly thought of something and said he would presumptuously relay it. He cleared his throat and said that the previous emperor, Agri Cayetan, once told my mother that it was abnormal for anyone to be born with the power of the sea dragon, and that he would develop feelings for me. He hoped I wouldn't refuse. At this moment, Adele was just like my mother, persuading me that for the sake of the people, I needed to become a family with Cien. Listening to him, it was as if my mother was right beside me, and I seemed to know what kind of person my mother was. She had great love. She cared more about the people than herself. I had a good impression of my mother. Seeing this, Adele was very happy. But my older brother said that becoming family with that guy was terrifying. A few days later, Cien came on a date with me. Just after I took a bite, my expression changed dramatically. It was too sour. Cien, however, had a calm expression. He affectionately called me Bobo. Then he said he wanted to give me a gift. He took out a delicate box. I opened it full of anticipation. Inside was a gemstone. However, I wasn't the least bit happy, because it was made from the blood of a water sprite. Cien happily said that it would allow the wearer to breathe underwater. However, in my past life, as a daughter of the sea, I didn't need the ability to breathe underwater, and I truly understood the pain of them being sealed within this gem. I tried to communicate with it and secretly made up my mind. If I found the person who sealed them, I definitely wouldn't let them go. I hoped to establish a connection with the being inside the gem. I was on a date with my boyfriend during the day, and yet I eloped with someone else at night. Just now, during my date with Cien, he gave me a gem. I asked Cien where he got the gem, because it was one of a pair of twin gems. He replied that he bought it at an auction and invited me to go with him. He excitedly told me that it was the nation's premier auction house. We hit it off immediately. I secretly resolved to find the other half. At this moment, Cien looked at me with adoration. What he didn't know was that the so-called twin gems were a lie, and my true purpose was to find a gem of the same material, thereby rescuing the sealed sea sprite. At this time, Cien, in order to conceal his royal identity, had specially disguised himself. I actually didn't recognize him for a moment. I didn't expect him to sneak out with me. He really loved me. Looking at Cien's infatuated appearance, I decided to buy him a gift, because I was now a little rich woman with a blank check. We arrived late at night. Looking at the crowds outside the window, Cien told me to hold his hand tightly. I nodded frantically. In the huge auction house, Cien had actually prepared a telescope for me. He even thoughtfully held it for me. I had my eye on the 9th item in the auction. I quietly told Cien about it. He told me to go to sleep. He explained that the 9th item would take a while. I was feeling sleepy by then. I fell asleep immediately. I woke up the moment the auctioneer announced the 9th item. I hurriedly looked towards the center of the room. Everyone was bidding. Someone immediately caught my attention. I quickly told Cien about it. He's one of that obnoxious boy's subordinates, I said. Cien's face immediately darkened. I thought for a moment. We had only intended to raise the bid by 1 unit just to tease him. Unexpectedly, we won it easily. That subordinate angrily left. Suddenly, I froze. I had spotted the Gemini jewel. I couldn't help but marvel at my good luck. I had to have this jewel. Meanwhile, that man was pacing back and forth outside. He was afraid of being punished for his failure. He was unwilling to give up. Then, he developed murderous intentions towards us. The jewel I casually bought actually contained 2 spirits. Just because I obtained the jewel at the auction, someone wanted to kill me. Fortunately, the royal guards were secretly protecting me. After returning, I happily chanted the spell for the jewel I bought at the auction. As expected, the jewel vibrated in place. I looked forward to the sea spirits being freed. Suddenly, 2 sea spirits with large, fluttering eyes leaped out. I was very satisfied with the effect of the spell, but immediately I collapsed on the ground, exhausted from chanting. The 2 sea spirits were behind me, concerned about my condition. I pulled myself together and asked them about my seal magic. One of the sea spirits swam to my palm and explained that the seal on me wasn't evil. It was a seal of resurrection. I was extremely puzzled. The sea spirit continued to explain that the seal had protected me and allowed me to survive until now. I expressed doubt about the sea spirit's words. The sea spirit patiently replied that it was a magic spell that would resurrect me at a predetermined time. I pondered. Although I felt that creatures of the sea wouldn't lie, I still poked the sea spirit and accused him of lying, because Cayetan and Ind had indeed betrayed me. I recalled how they had broken their oaths to me. I shook my head vigorously, refusing to believe it. I sat on the ground, crying and complaining that they had sealed me without my consent. After a while, my goofy second brother came to find me. He eagerly asked about my well-being. I was also overjoyed because I hadn't seen him for so long. My second brother was also delighted by my enthusiasm and wanted to hug and spin me around. He nuzzled his head against mine and said he didn't want to leave. I asked him where he was going. My goofy second brother gently explained that every noble family had to send a son to the polar region. I grumbled, venting my dissatisfaction. Seeing this, my second brother reassured me and said he would follow the previous explorer's route. But I still ran to my pillow, worried, and handed him a jewel. My goofy second brother was so happy with the gift I gave him that he almost fainted. He was overcome with joy. I told him to keep it with him at all times. He readily agreed. I still looked at him worriedly and held out my arms for a hug. He lifted me high above his head. I rested my head on my goofy brother's chest and threatened that I wouldn't spare him if he got hurt. He promised me that he would be fine, but I was still uneasy. A few days later, the emperor asked to meet me at 10 o'clock, but he never showed up. Suddenly, a maid stumbled in. Then another maid came in and explained that the emperor's guards had arrived. Watching his respectful greeting, I was initially a little angry and wanted to see how he would explain himself. Unexpectedly, he told me that Xian was ill. I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. Before I was born, I was betrayed by my boyfriend. Now my boyfriend is seriously ill. Xian's attendant came to report that Xian's illness had flared up again. Upon hearing this, I hurriedly had him announce my arrival so I could go and care for Xian. The attendant worriedly informed me that Xian's condition this time was more serious than ever before. My already anxious heart sank even further. He said Xian had even destroyed half the palace. I was stunned when I heard this. When we finally arrived at Xian's bedchamber, unable to contain my worry, I rushed towards him. At this moment, Xian was sitting quietly, welcoming me. I anxiously took his hand and asked him if he was all right. Seeing that he didn't answer, I shook his hand vigorously and even patted his chest, ordering him to get better quickly. But Xian's condition didn't seem to improve. I didn't understand why I hadn't been able to heal him, even though we had just connected. The next second, his coughing worsened. I desperately tried to think of a way to heal Xian. I couldn't help but reach out and touch him. At that moment, I noticed that Xian's condition suddenly improved, so I cupped his face in my hands. Finding the healing too slow, I kissed him. I kissed him all over his face. Xian blushed and remained motionless. After a few kisses, Xian was actually cured by my kisses. Although a little weak, he gently thanked me and said I was his goddess of luck and happiness. We sat close together. Suddenly, I looked up at him, and taking his hand, I affectionately said I wanted to be Xian's family. Xian was stunned. Then, blushing, he said he'd always hoped for that. When I went to visit Xian again, the emperor was leisurely drinking tea and told me that Xian was asleep. I angrily scolded him for not letting me come earlier. No matter how the emperor tried to appease me, I couldn't be calmed. Suddenly, I had an idea and gave the emperor a mischievous look. I told him that he could simply compensate me with money for the time I had waited there. I held out my hand, asking for gold bars, and I demanded 100 yuan per second. The emperor was clearly shocked by my blatant extortion. Meanwhile, I pretended to be frail and occasionally dabbed at my eyes, feigning tears. He couldn't handle me and promised to bring me a gift. My eyes lit up at the mention of a gift. He said he could give me a ship enchanted with a spell to prevent it from sinking. I asked him the value of the ship. He replied that it was worth about a chest of gold bars. I held out my hands, demanding he give it to me right then. but he refused, so I started throwing a tantrum again. He reluctantly agreed. I looked forward to immediately sailing with Xian when he woke up, but I had already left by then. He sat alone by the window, thinking that his deliberately staged outburst wasn't entirely a bad thing. At least he could possess me completely. He remembered his mother telling him when he was a child that one day he would have something of his own. He felt that having me was the happiest thing in the world and that I could only belong to him. No one could take me away from him. Because I hadn't married a good man, I became a notorious woman. A few days later, the day arrived for my brothers to depart. Numerous mages cast their spells. My eldest brother held my hand as we stood among the crowd. My second brother noticed us. He quickly walked towards us. I asked if I should kiss him. Faced with my affectionate brother, I resignedly told him to come closer. My silly brother smoothly asked if it was because I wanted a better look at a handsome guy. Ignoring his teasing, I moved closer to him. I gently pressed my forehead against Goofy's second brother's and used all my strength to cast a protective spell on him. I also gave him a kiss. He instantly lit up with joy. Overwhelmed with happiness, he hugged me tightly. Meanwhile, my eldest brother was reminding Goofy's second brother to be careful. Goofy's second brother agreed readily, then bid us farewell. My eldest brother held me, but his eyes were filled with worry. The thought of not seeing my Goofy brother for another year brought tears to my eyes. Seeing my sadness, my eldest brother hugged me tightly and gently told me it was okay to cry. I instantly broke down, burying my face in his chest and sobbing. 5 years passed in the blink of an eye. I was standing by the window, lost in thought, when I suddenly sensed a hidden weapon flying towards me. With swift reflexes, I caught the poison needle, but they still didn't dare to show themselves. What they didn't know was that as I grew older, I became more and more adept at wielding the power of the ocean. I used chains of seawater to bind the assassins and demanded to know who sent them. One of them was beaten black and blue by me. The other two kept apologizing profusely. Not hearing the answer I wanted, I tightened the chains. Then, putting on an innocent expression, I asked them what was wrong. The three were scared witless and kowtowed incessantly. I kindly told them that it wasn't their fault for trying to assassinate me. As long as they were willing to tell me who sent them, they would be pardoned. They wavered, and I, with an innocent face, managed to convince them I was telling the truth. Then, I smiled and threatened them that if they didn't talk, they would be thrown into the dungeon. The next morning, I was still dawdling in my room when I suddenly realized Xian was about to arrive. If Xian found out I had dealt with the assassins privately, he would definitely be angry with me. In a panic, I pretended to be asleep. Xian came in and patted my back, but he saw through my pretense. He gently asked what had happened last night. Afraid he would blame me for acting on my own, I didn't tell him the truth. Xian then became sullen, thinking I didn't trust him. I was completely oblivious to this and quickly changed the subject. Xian said he had a meeting to attend shortly. I froze when I heard this because it was a meeting about the missing persons. Xian said anxiously that there would be a result today. My brother had been missing for 5 years. As I grew older, I transformed from a sweet girl into a formidable woman. All of this was because of my brother's disappearance. I anxiously awaited news of my brother's safety. Xian told me that due to obstruction by the nobles, the search and rescue efforts couldn't be fully carried out. Resentful towards these nobles, I angrily asked, aren't these nobles worried about their own sons being sent to Dongsun? Xian explained that only children without status in their families were sent there. This made me despise the nobles even more. Seeing my foul mood, Xian changed the subject and asked if I wanted to have breakfast. Looking at the table full of food, I had no appetite. I angrily gripped my fork and snapped it in two. Xian, who was beside me, was startled by my strength. The atmosphere became quite awkward. He immediately reassured me, saying it was fortunate I hadn't hurt myself. So, Xian used his own fork to feed me. I was thinking that with the help of the ocean giants, I could find my brother. I asked Xian if he could take me to the secret library to look for information on the giants. He jokingly replied that I would have to become his empress first. Rejected by Xian, I pouted angrily. That secret library was protected by a powerful spell that even I couldn't break. Seeing my anger, Xian explained that he was afraid the nobles would accuse me of influencing the royal family. Suddenly, I had an idea. If I made a significant contribution, the nobles wouldn't dare to say anything. Xian ruffled my hair, praising me for being so clever. So I asked him to take me to the assembly, to see if there was anything I could do. Xian agreed indulgently. I arrived at the dungeon where the 3 assassins were held. They were trembling. As soon as they saw me, They started yelling desperately. To their surprise, I offered to make them my attendants. The assassins were incredulous. I smugly told them they'd have full benefits, even hazard pay, but then I darkly threatened to feed them to the sharks if they betrayed me. Upon hearing this, the three assassins knelt down and pledged their loyalty. I softly asked them if the Half Moon Clan had sent them to kill me, that most mysterious assassination organization in the country. I thought that if I could capture this organization, it would be a great achievement. So I gave them their first task, to lead me to the Half Moon organization. At dawn, the three of us disguised ourselves and went to a blacksmith shop. The owner tried to stop me, seeing that I was a child. The three of them silenced the owner with their swords. It turned out my three subordinates were quite skilled at assassination, walking, and fighting. I opened the back door of the shop. A group of tough-looking men stood before me. I politely asked them if they knew anything about Half Moon. Unexpectedly, they just mocked me. Smiling deceptively, I cast a spell on them. Suddenly, the oil behind them surged forward. The tough guys suffocated and collapsed. I grabbed one of them by the hair. I asked him menacingly if he knew anything about Half Moon. A seemingly delicate young girl had just knocked down a group of tough men. Angrily, I threw the man who insulted me to the ground. According to this man, one must be referred to Half Moon by a liaison to hire assassins. But even the liaison doesn't know Half Moon's true identity. They disguise themselves as ordinary people on the streets. It seems difficult to find them. If only I could capture them on the street. I decided they were no longer of value and turned to leave. Meanwhile, the assembly was about to begin. All the nobles were invited. They discussed my identity. Some believed I couldn't cure the crown prince's mania. Others thought they should observe for a while longer. Some even said I lacked manners. Just then, a calm voice demanded that those who slandered me repeat themselves. My older brother strode in, his presence commanding respect. The nobles fell silent. My brother scornfully told them that if they doubted me, they should find someone who could cure the crown prince. A nobleman, however, was dismissive and taunted my brother about the loss of his younger brother. My brother was enraged by this man's outrageous remarks. No one spoke up for him. Suddenly, the entire room fell silent. The images of the emperor and crown prince, Xian, gradually materialized on the throne. No matter how many times they saw it, the nobles were still astonished. The emperor solemnly declared the assembly open. Meanwhile, a maid took me for a walk by the sea, but she fell face first into the sand. I don't know how she became a maid. Annoyed, I used magic to splash seawater on myself. The maid, seeing this, anxiously carried me away, afraid I would get sick. She promised to bring me back tomorrow. Returning to the palace, I bumped into the emperor and Xian, who had just finished their meeting. Xian smiled and told me to go take a bath and prepare for good news. I was thrilled. I skipped along, ready to receive the long-awaited good news. During my adventure, I had apparently earned the emperor's approval. And before the adventure, at lunch, I was also unaware of the good news to come. Xian looked at me indulgently as I ate heartily. After the meal, I excitedly asked him what the good news was. Xian wiped the sauce off my face with his hand. I urged him to tell me the good news. Xian finally told me they had found traces of the giant clan. I was thrilled. I cried out excitedly. Back in Atlantis, the giant clan, with their 500-year lifespans, had little interest in having offspring, which led to their extinction. Xian added that the royal family had also discovered lost artifacts covered in mysterious writing. This was crucial to understanding the secrets of the giant clan. Even Goofy's second brother was interested. I looked at them exasperatedly. They were acting like they'd never seen the world before, pondering the giant clan's legacy, which was undoubtedly priceless. Suddenly, a business opportunity struck me, collecting the treasures left by the giant clan. Excitedly, I volunteered to Xian, hoping to explore the ruins. Xian, of course, agreed. I thought confidently, there's no better translator than me. Actually, I was secretly planning to collect treasures. Once I earned enough money, I could send out a third search party to find my brother. A few days later, a carriage capable of traveling 1,000 miles a day was parked in front of the palace. I was so excited, I wanted to jump right into the carriage. But to my displeasure, they wouldn't let me get out and explore the streets. Xian was worried I'd be targeted by assassins if I left the palace. I'm not a child. Annoyed, I watched Xian looking at the map. He said the giant clan ruins were remote and dangerous, making it easy for assassins. I couldn't help but worry. Just then, my two sea spirits flew out and said they would protect me. I was relieved. Since Xian needed to guard the palace, he couldn't come with me. Then he started worrying again, like an old father, nagging in my ear. I thought to myself, I'm not that mischievous, am I? In the blink of an eye, the carriage arrived at its destination. I was stunned by the beautiful scenery along the way. I thought to myself, there must be a lot of treasures here. If I could get 5 or 6, wouldn't I be rich? The ruins of the giant clan looked magnificent. We couldn't help but marvel at them. The emperor was there, inquiring about the progress of the giant writings translation. A minister proudly reported that they had deciphered 1 stone pillar. I thought to myself, only 1. That's so inefficient, even with so many people working together. The emperor ordered him to bring the translation. He glanced over and saw me standing there, but then he turned and left. The emperor seemed to think I would follow him. He was wrong. Humming a cheerful tune, I ambitiously began my treasure hunt. I instructed the maids to join the search. Thus, the tomb raiding squad was formed, with the world's only 2 remaining sea spirits as my divine pets and their treasure hunting abilities. My 2 sea spirits appeared and helped me search. Guided by them, I moved swiftly. Suddenly, we arrived at a tall, canyon-like structure. Although it was my first time here, it felt familiar. Seeing me stop, Seabay asked what was wrong. I ignored him. Suddenly, I remembered when I was still the king of the ocean and I visited here in disguise. I said I wanted to visit the giant clan's market and was very attentive to me back then. I suddenly excused myself, saying I wanted to go for a walk, and said goodbye to him. But now, I can't remember what I wanted to buy. I recalled that among the giant clan's goods, defensive tools were the most popular. If I could get a few, I'd be rich. I tugged on Seabay's sleeve. I asked him to take me inside for a look, but the maids hesitated, worried it might be unsafe. I assured them it would be fine and started to pull them inside. I urged them to hurry up and follow. I was stopped by an unfamiliar voice. 2 young-looking people warned me, "You can't go in here." I was obstructed, which I never expected. So I started to fake cry, pretending to be fragile, try to use my feminine charms on them. The 2 men were thunderstruck by my actions. The maid cleared the way for me, introducing my identity. After hearing this, the 2 men politely apologized to us. I was curious about their sudden change in attitude, but who knew? They were honored to have seen my true face. After entering, we were astonished by the enormous furnishings inside. The timid maid was tiptoeing even as she walked. I told her not to be afraid and that she wouldn't get hurt. Only then was she relieved. Suddenly, the 2 sea spirits seemed to sense something. They quickly flew into the air. They tried to find something, but failed. I bit my lip in disappointment. Sea spirits are creatures that can swallow anything. But if even they couldn't find the treasure, where else could I look? Just then, the maid suddenly called my name, saying she had discovered a secret passage. We looked towards the passage. It seemed less like a passage and more like an entrance. I found the location of this place's entrance very strange. Suddenly, the usually ditzy maid fell down, but then she slowly climbed back up. Adele breathed a sigh of relief. But if someone were to fall into that hole, they would definitely be seriously injured. A cunning glint flashed in my eyes. Looking at the unharmed, cheerfully chatting ditzy maid, I suddenly felt a pang of fear. Who was she behind those lenses? Possessing the world's only treasure-hunting spirit pet. They led me to the giant clan's treasure, but I only picked up a wooden ring. Before finding the treasure, my maid fell into a bottomless pit. I knelt at the edge of the hole and looked down, wondering if my judgment was wrong. But with such a depth, an ordinary person would definitely be seriously injured if they fell. But she came back up completely unharmed. How could this always clumsy maid be like this? But I didn't have time to think about this question and led them away. After going outside, I questioned the guards here, hoping to find the treasure, but we still couldn't find any trace of it. Frustrated, I demanded the sea spirits put in more effort and help me search. The next second, I started searching again tirelessly. I came to a place with closed doors and windows, thinking that this must be where the treasure was hidden. So I summoned the sea spirits and asked them to help me see if there was any treasure here. The maid beside me said it was strange that there were no guards here. The guard replied that because it was absolutely impossible to get in, there was no need to guard it. I thought to myself, this is it. The treasure must be here. I stared at the door, pondering how to get in. So I turned around, hoping to find another entrance. Sure enough, I found one. This door looked like it had been abandoned for a long time. So, with a flick of my finger, I used magic to clean the place. After cleaning, I pushed the door, intending to go in. But no matter how hard I pushed, the door wouldn't budge. It seemed to be cursed, so I had to use magic to defeat magic. After a loud noise, a line of words appeared on the door. It read, "Only the victor can open this door." I was very puzzled. Did it want me to destroy the building? At this moment, the sea spirits came out and told us that it had been activated and that we just needed to use more powerful magic to break it. So I made up my mind to fight this door to the death. I turned around and asked Adele to prevent anyone from approaching while I was casting the spell. Adele was shocked at first, but then desperately stopped the guards. I looked at the small, broken door with confidence and waved my hands, releasing a powerful spell. The guards were stunned by my powerful magic. With a boom, the door opened. I triumphantly put my hands on my hips, enjoying the fruits of my victory. Then I ordered Adele to go in with me. The moment I stepped inside, I was stunned by the sight before me. As expected, this place was filled with the giant clan's legacy. I played with the giant clan's treasures. They also enjoyed crafting beautiful, yet useless trinkets. Each of these gold and silver treasures was worth a fortune. Crouching on the ground, I thought about how I would soon be able to raise funds to dispatch a search and rescue ship to find my brother. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echoed from behind. I turned to see the Emperor, who had evidently witnessed everything. I possessed the world's only treasure-hunting sea spirits, and through them, I found a vast amount of treasure. But at this moment, the Emperor and his entourage appeared, demanding I hand over the treasure. So I sat down on the floor and started playing the fool. Xian calmly watched my performance. The Emperor was astonished by the sheer quantity of antiques here. I corrected him, saying it was a treasure room, not a collection of antiques. The Emperor clearly didn't understand what I was talking about, so I boasted to them, explaining that I had found all of this myself, even opening the door. Full of anticipation, I asked the Emperor to give it all to me. But the Emperor hesitated. Seeing his reluctance, I threatened to close the door. The Emperor and the translators behind him were frightened. The minister beside him was also unwilling to give me all the treasure. The Emperor, however, softly agreed. I was overjoyed and couldn't believe it. The Emperor praised me for finding the treasure room, calling it a great achievement. I figure my threat must have worked. But this order was met with opposition from the translators. Their bickering gave the Emperor a splitting headache. After giving the most vocal one a slap, he turned his back and glared at them, accusing them of being here for so long, yet discovering nothing. The translators were instantly silenced. The minister's face was extremely embarrassed. I also felt this was quite unreasonable. The minister then began bowing and apologizing. Sensing the awkward atmosphere, I proposed that if I translated 10 stone pillars, the treasure would all belong to me. This proposal made the translators lose face. I scoffed, saying it was the easiest thing in the world. Then the two translators started whispering. Afterwards, they suddenly became extremely respectful towards me. The other translators were incredibly envious of my talent. Feeling it best not to linger, I ordered the sea spirits to quickly swallow more treasure and take it away. I secretly calculated that I would definitely make a fortune this time. The next day, Xian and my grandfather also arrived at the giant clan ruins. I greeted my grandfather enthusiastically. My grandfather affectionately called me by my nickname. He held me in his arms, and I noticed he had more wrinkles on his face. He, in his playful manner, said it was because he hadn't seen me in so long. But the thought that my grandfather only had 50 years left to live made me sad. Grandfather wasn't sentimental about it and was still very enthusiastic about starting work. I explained the situation here to him. At this point, those two hypocritical translators started to get anxious, worried their work would be taken away again. I showed them the ancient text I had copied in my notebook, telling them it was an insult. They finally realized their mistake and felt very ashamed. I asked them if they were now convinced. They immediately changed their tune and started praising me. I was secretly delighted that the treasures would soon be mine. Adele suddenly looked up at the sky and told me it might rain soon. My wise grandfather told me that rain would make it difficult to decipher the writing on the stone pillars. I then left the pillars with the maid. Alone, I stared at the overcast sky, lost in thought, remembering my past life and shopping with End in similar weather. I remember holding the things I bought at the market, wanting to give them to him. He said he liked them very much. Recalling these past events, I couldn't help but wear an expression unbefitting my age. Suddenly, a coat was draped over my head, shielding me from the rain. Why was it him? After being betrayed by my ex-boyfriend, I was reborn again. I have a new boyfriend now, but I've run into a boy who looks exactly like my ex. Right now, I'm looking at this man who resembles the one who seduced my ex-boyfriend. I'm wondering why he took the initiative to talk to me today. I thanked him somewhat sunderly for his kindness, but he then crouched down and asked me about my recent hiring of attendants. I replied that it was to search for Goofy's second brother. The Emperor told me not to worry and promised to send out a third search party. I pulled the undamaged magic brooch from my pocket and said that Goofy's second brother must still be alive. The Emperor said, "No wonder. Goofy's second brother inexplicably had one on his chest too." He turned his head and said gravely that Goofy's second brother and his party vanished as if they had evaporated into thin air. My heart sank. Suddenly, I realized they hadn't searched the ocean floor yet. I excitedly asked the Emperor about it, but he said there had been no underwater search because humans can't breathe underwater. If a ship sinks, there's no chance of survival. He patted my head and told me not to worry, as there was no evidence of a shipwreck. I was still worried. Just then, Xian secretly reported something to a minister. After hearing the report, the minister told the Emperor that the cardinal had arrived. Upon hearing this, the Emperor got up to leave. I reminded him that he had left his coat. The Emperor patted my head and praised me for being thoughtful. He invited me to join him in welcoming the cardinal. It was drizzling outside the tent. I followed closely behind the Emperor. I heard footsteps approaching. To my surprise, the cardinal was a young boy. Hiding behind the Emperor, I observed him and thought he looked a lot like End. Xian introduced him to me. Despite his young age, the cardinal had the ability to change the weather. Sure enough, the rain stopped shortly after. The Emperor then instructed people to begin the translation work. At that moment, the cardinal approached me and started talking. He introduced himself as Ollie and offered to share his food with me. I was shocked because his mannerisms were exactly like En's. The next moment, I was scooped up into someone's arms. The Emperor carried me away for some reason, seemingly unwilling to let me interact with Ollie. Ollie just stood there, smiling. The Emperor, holding me, told the cardinal to withdraw, but the cardinal seemed reluctant to leave immediately. I acted up on the Emperor's back, demanding he put me down. He warned me not to get too close to Ollie. Annoyed, I stuck my tongue out at his retreating figure. Then, as if nothing had happened, the cardinal asked me my name. I introduced myself with a cold expression. Suddenly, I had an idea. I told Ollie to follow me, and he became my tag-along. But he kept disappearing inexplicably. Every time, I had to go to great lengths to find him. He explained that he was familiarizing himself with the area. To make it up to me, he cast a spell to dispel my fatigue. I immediately felt refreshed. Impressed by his ability, I asked to be his friend. Ollie blushed, shyly covering his mouth as he agreed. My clingy ex-boyfriend and my scheming current boyfriend. Who should I choose? Ollie, who looks just like my ex, has become my little shadow. He seemed happy to be my friend. I asked him if he often helped people relieve their fatigue like that. He said it was determined by one's constitution. Royalty might even experience a rejection reaction. I fell into deep thought, like Xian, who experienced a strong rejection reaction after gaining the powerful strength of the sea dragon. Thinking of this, I resented Kaiten again, but Ollie was looking at me meaningfully. I wanted to continue questioning him, but he said he had to leave. Looking towards the temple, he said he couldn't be away for too long. He promised that I could find him anytime I needed him. I thanked him for his kindness. Then, I took him back to the main hall with me. Later that night, everyone sat around the bonfire chatting. I was basking in the warmth. Suddenly, I felt a psychic connection. My heart raced as I calmed myself. I rushed back to the tent, and there he was, just as I'd sensed. Xian's image appeared in the tent. I'm still amazed by the way the royals appear. Xian sat down and asked how I was doing. Excitedly, I told him I'd made a new friend. A shadow of annoyance flickered across Xian's face. Oblivious, I continued sharing my news. He smiled and nodded, saying he looked forward to meeting this new friend. I then asked if Xian had experienced any episodes while I was away. He gently replied that my previous care had greatly improved his condition. Embarrassed, I humbly downplayed my contribution. Looking at Xian, I remembered that Kaiten was responsible for his curse, and my heart ached. Shouts from outside the tent startled me. I went to investigate and found Adele and my brother. Adele fearfully told me something strange was happening at the stone pillars. I stood there puzzled. My brother saw Xian and invited him to join us. The four of us went to the stone pillars. Numerous attendants holding torches were equally bewildered. Suddenly, a tremendous roar echoed. The mist stung everyone's eyes, making it impossible to see. I volunteered to illuminate the area. I summoned the High Lin and asked them to investigate. They told me assassins had arrived. My heart lurched. Suddenly, Adele and my brother shielded me. Touched, I froze. The High Lin then informed me that they could no longer see anything. Silence returned to the area around the stone pillars. Only the goofy girl was screaming in fear. I pulled my brother along to the scene. The closer we got, the stronger the smell of blood became. I gasped. Wise Grandpa lay bleeding on the grass. I shook Grandpa, praying he was still alive. Those around me said he seemed to have been cursed. Desperate, I thought of the resurrection spell and was about to shatter the stone slab in front of me. Suddenly, a strange light emanated from the slab. Astonished, I read the words that appeared in the sky. It was indeed a curse from the sea giants. Protected by the High Lin, I had received guidance passed down for millennia. As I cast the spell, lines of text appeared on the ancient city walls. I couldn't help but wonder if the sea giants had been waiting for me. I decided to break their curse first. Seeing my motionless departure, the crowd kept their distance, fearing the curse. I glared at their cowardice. I knelt beside Wise Grandpa, heartbroken. Xian appeared at my side and comforted me. His encouragement renewed my resolve. I clasped my hands together. Using the magic of the sea, I uttered a powerful incantation. Everyone was stunned by the extraordinary sight. Xian and I seemed to merge, unleashing immense power. I resurrected Wise Grandpa. Xian looked at me with relief, but exhausted. I collapsed onto Grandpa. The maid screamed. My brother rushed forward and caught me. Confirming I was only unconscious, he sent someone to carry me back to camp. The goofy maid attended to me as I slept. When I groggily opened my eyes, I abruptly sat up in bed. My sudden movement startled the goofy maid. Adele rushed in and anxiously took my hand. Seeing I was all right, she burst into tears of relief. I patiently comforted her. He wiped his tears happily, but I said I had been idle just a few hours ago. Wise Grandpa also came to see me after he recovered. Then he started preparing food for me. I thought of that old city wall again. It was clearly a message left for me by the giants. I racked my brains trying to understand it. But the next second I was lying in bed, lost in thought. If I want to see the giants, I must build an Atlantean ship and go to the place where Goofy's second brother disappeared. The next day, Adele urged me to leave this dangerous place quickly. Seeing her concerned look, I didn't know how to refuse. So I agreed to return to the palace. Soon I embarked on my journey home. Unexpectedly, the translators also came to see me off. They thanked me for saving Wise Grandpa. I just felt it was what I should do. At this moment, Wise Grandpa came out from the crowd. He told me to be careful. I also told him he must live another 50 years, not a year less. But then I suddenly thought of something. I could ask Wise Grandpa to help me with something. Wise Grandpa curiously asked what it was. I coughed and told him to come closer. Then I whispered it in his ear. Wise Grandpa immediately agreed and promised he would definitely do it for me. My ex-boyfriend sealed me away years ago using a secret method, but who knew he would reappear now and arrange for a child who looks very much like him to get close to me. Just now, I returned to the palace. I told Adele not to follow me and rushed off to find Xian alone. I've never been separated from Xian for so long. I kept praying that Xian would be safe and sound. The minister who came to the door was surprised to see me there. I playfully told him to keep his secret. I tiptoed and opened the door. Xian sensed someone and his writing hand paused. He asked sternly, "Is the Prime Minister dead?" I was startled by his unusual behavior, but I was still pleased with his growth along the way. I happily skipped over to him, but he slammed the table angrily. His face darkened as if he wanted to punish someone disobedient. But when he turned around, he saw his beloved cutie whom he missed day and night. His expression instantly softened. He asked why I came back early. Hearing me say it was because I missed him, Xian's face flushed again. He happily said he would prepare lots of delicious food for me. I smelled the aroma of the food and felt extremely happy. Xian sat beside me and asked if I had found any treasures. I touched my pocket and said, of course. Then I handed Xian a treasure with a spell on it. I grinned mischievously. It's a spell that can make the person next to you go bald. Xian was amused by me and said he would treasure it. Then, stroking my head, He suddenly asked tentatively, "What's that smell on you?" I sniffed, but couldn't smell anything different. He suppressed his anger and said someone had deeply embedded the scent within me. Suddenly, the door opened. The snacks were delivered. I happily enjoyed the food. Sien then tentatively asked me again, "Who is that new friend you made?" I excitedly told him about Cardinal Ali, and told him that Ali could control the weather. Sien smiled and explained that all cardinals can control the weather. I felt that befriending him was the right choice. Sien continued to probe, asking if I had fun with Ali. I nodded and said, "Ali even cast a blessing spell on me." I wanted to say more, but stopped. I clenched my fists in pain, gritting my teeth. If Goofy's second brother were here, he would be so happy to hear these stories too. "I will definitely find you, brother." A while later, Sien stood alone by the window. He resented the cardinal in his heart. How dare he mark Bobo, who belonged only to him? This can't just end here. Popo is Sien's angel. The first time he resonated with Popo, Sien felt truly alive for the first time. But the cardinal dared to try and take me away. So, Sien summoned 3 assassins with a wave of his hand and sent them to destroy the temple. The assassins asked if they should leave any of the believers alive. Sien, remembering my dislike for such things, spared their lives. He then instructed the assassins not to injure anyone during the operation. Meanwhile, at the temple, Ali walked alone down the corridor, burdened with worries, and arrived at a certain place. Ali looked at the man with vacant eyes. No one would have guessed that this man was End. My subordinate's ex-boyfriend is now the supreme god of this world. He had to give up some things for this. Now, the revered Ali respectfully reported on my situation. He was nothing more than a puppet created by End. After listening to Ali's report, End pondered for a moment. Then a large hand reached out. Ali closed his eyes silently. Instantly, his memory surfaced. The last thing he saw was my smiling face. As End withdrew his hand, Ali shamefully admitted he hadn't detected any divine presence on me, and hesitated slightly, then raised a hand towards the void. My image appeared. Ali blushed even deeper. Seeing this, End's expression darkened. With a wave of his hand, my image vanished. Ali desperately wanted to break free from End. His longing for me surfaced. Elsewhere, in the royal palace, everyone was discussing how I saved Wise Grandpa. Their attitudes toward me had changed. I basked in their praise. I just didn't know when I could go complain to the royal family. The emperor hadn't returned yet, and I didn't know if the ailing Sien could hold on until the emperor's return. Just then, there was a noise outside the door. I excitedly opened the door and found a panicked attendant. He tearfully reported that Sien hadn't woken up. Panic seized me. I rushed into the room. The large room was empty, but as I walked further in, I froze. Sien seemed to be on the verge of collapse. My boyfriend was manipulating me. I thought he was cured, but he was sick again. My boyfriend suffered from a manic disorder. He finally recovered after resonating with me. But unbeknownst to me, he could now control his body. To keep me by his side, he was feigning illness. He was pretending to be sick so I wouldn't leave him. Looking at Sien in bed, I quickly placed my hand on his forehead, anxiously looking at the burning, unconscious man. He, in turn, comforted me in my distress. I promised to stay until he recovered. I told him not to work today and assured him I'd take care of everything. With that, I headed to his desk. Gripping the pen, I prepared to get to work. I sat by Sien's bed, writing furiously. Suddenly, I wondered what the New Year's party was. Sien was too weak to explain. I imagined it was a dreadfully boring gathering, full of adults exchanging insincere flattery. An idea struck me. I asked Sien if we could go out that night. Excitedly, I started planning the details. Sien indulgently told me I could try giving the orders. I smelled the scent of power and thought, now everyone will have to listen to me. Who knew I'd fall asleep while writing? Sien gently scooped me up in a princess carry. Looking at my small form, Sien smiled, his thoughts seemingly as deep as the abyss. He mused, their cuteness can truly change fate. He watched me sleeping soundly in bed. Sien picked up the notebook I clutched to my chest. He sat alone, feeling guilty for feigning illness to keep me by his side. Then he began reading my seaside outing plan. He read carefully, his eyes glued to the page. Then he chuckled, amused by my cuteness. He sensed how much I cared about this seaside banquet, so he indulgently pulled some strings for me, stamping the plan with the urgent seal. After pulling strings for his beloved, Sien felt extremely satisfied. He then came to my bedside, stroking my head while secretly plotting how to possess me forever. Completely oblivious, I was still talking in my sleep. 3 days later, in the royal council chamber, The emperor announced that he would commend my heroic deeds at the giant's ruins. Sitting in the audience, I listened, brimming with pride. The scholars were also incredibly grateful that I had saved wise grandpa. I waved my little hand and said I didn't need any material rewards, just access to the secret library. Then I recounted my past achievements. The nitpicking green-clad man from before listened with a sneer. He objected to me entering the secret library. I was indignant upon hearing the murmurs of dissent. Furious, I glared. The emperor turned to me, observing my expression. To everyone's surprise, I put on the cutest expression imaginable. The entire hall fell silent. Everyone present was captivated by my cuteness. Even the uncle who had previously scorned my lack of knowledge was charmed and asked me to repeat what I had said. After I complied, he was completely smitten. Others also began speaking up for me. Seeing this, Xian nodded in satisfaction. The green-clad man's face was livid. He seemed to be scheming. The emperor paid no attention to his reaction. The assembly declared that I was permitted to enter the secret library. I pumped my fist and whispered victory. Finally, I could uncover this earth-shattering secret.